Hello guys, Alex Faratov here, and today we have an amazing guest, one of our students, Alex Philip. But Alex is an amazing guy. Like he's obviously doing e-commerce, but he is utilizing influencers heavily, and he wants to share today some of the lessons that allow him. So on some of the days they would do like $50,000-$60,000 per day in sales with influencers, and I'm looking forward to learn myself, and I hope you guys get a lot of value from this. Thank you for joining me today, man.
Awesome, yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. Great to share some value about influencers.
What kind of when did you start with e-commerce in the first place? Like how many years have you been doing this?
So I've been in dropshipping at least for 4 years now. I started in 2017. Back then I was actually using kind of meme pages, those type of micro influencers. We're using like the big celebrities, more personal influencers, and that's what allowed us to scale big.
And so do you actively use like Facebook as well? Or are you mostly focusing on influencers currently?
Yeah, so the brands that we use influencers for primarily, we don't use Facebook as well because the products, mostly in the beauty space, kind of hard to get approved on Facebook. We do have a strategy for reusing the content that we have made for retargeting and lookalikes and stuff like that. But primarily influencers on particular stores.
That's awesome. And what markets are you mostly operating in?
So we mostly use influencers in the US. Obviously, UK, Canada, Australia, the big five are great markets. There is obviously influencers in Canada, France, Germany, those are the European markets. You probably need to be skilled in the language to kind of make sure the messaging and the structure is all correct. So it's kind of a disadvantage if you don't speak the language. But people who are from those countries, of course, it's big over there as well.
That's very fascinating stuff for me, doing because we mostly spend on paid advertising. That's kind of like our core expertise, right? And when I see guys like you doing those numbers, very interesting how these could be combined. This, let's say, paid advertising and then the influencers. So how does it can you walk me through your process from start to finish? So do you start with a product? Okay, so we have this product and we have now to push it, or do you start with these influencers and what they most pushed in the past, and maybe we'll sell similar product? Can you walk me through your thought process?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing you have to know is with influencers, as long as they have a strong audience and what we call a strong affinity with their audience, you can pretty much sell any relevant product. So if I want to work with a female influencer, the majority of the audience, as long as they're female, will be interested in beauty, jewelry. So you can pretty much go sell any product. So you can start with the product itself and then find all the relevant influencers, or you can do it the other way around. But really the main thing is the quality of the influencer. More times I've seen, as long as your influencer can sell your product the right way, the right structure, right positioning, it doesn't matter what the product is, it will take off.
Quality of influencer, right? That's what you mentioned.
Exactly.
Hey guys, people have been asking me how we scale to multiple 6 figures or even 7 figures per month without getting shut down on Facebook. And we have a very sophisticated solution for this that I want to share with you, but it's just too valuable to give away for free. So if you guys want this solution, just book a call with one of my team members and we'll show you exactly what it is and how it works, and we'll see if that's a good fit for you and for your business. So just book a call with my team member. We'll share it with you so you can scale your business to multiple 6 figures or even 7 figures per month without getting shut down on Facebook, without having inconsistency, and with high profitability. So just book a call with my team and I'll see you there. What does that mean?
So you have to know that every influencer has a unique relationship with their follower. So let's say big celebrity influencer like a Kardashian, hundreds of millions of followers, but her audience isn't necessarily super attached to her. She has a good love, sort of respect for her, but they're not extremely close. But then there's these other micro influencers, maybe only 1 million followers or 500,000, but their followers are super close to them. They feel like personal relationship. They watch all their YouTube videos and stuff like that. It's not about the number of followers the influencer has. Of course, that is an element that is important in its own way, but it's the affinity, the connection between influencer and followers. So if, for example, someone who was on a TV show 10 years ago, maybe they had a few millions of followers from back then, you might just follow them. They don't actively engage with this person. They're just on there following this. And if they try to push a product, they might have a big audience, but they might not push as much as someone with 10 times smaller audience, but more passionate following.
I see. And is there like so do you just go through their posts and see how many like likes they've had, whether people comment, or you are using certain like tools to identify that?
So I would say affinity isn't something you can mathematically calculate. It's more to do with gut feeling sort of way. Obviously, there are a few things you can do. One thing I like to do is look at the comment section, and you can see if people are leaving comments like, where did you buy that shirt from? Or where did you get those jeans from? Something like that. It shows their followers like really like them. They want to be like them. If it's just emojis, love hearts, stuff like that, low quality, it's probably a sign of a low quality audience.
That's interesting. So, and those like, I know there are certain tools that can also like generate these comments, right? Like fake comments, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you can, look through the profiles themselves, see if it's real people. Typically, you would find an influencer is very similar to the followers in the sense that, so we mostly work with female influencers for beauty products. So if she's maybe a 40-year-old mother, her audience is probably also 40-year-old mothers. If you check their profiles, if it's like a good match, then you can tell it's like a legit person.
Okay, so you have that person. Do you use like tools? Like I know there's a tool called Hype Auditor.
Yeah.
Do you use that tool?
So I used to use that tool, and it's not the best because really you can only find how good an influencer is when you actually look into the like nuts and bolts of things. And if you like the numbers, the engagement rate. Obviously, high engagement rate is usually a good thing, but it's really looking and analyzing all the different aspects. Like you can inflate all these numbers very easily. You can manipulate them. So it does work to a certain extent. But as far as research goes and just verifying stuff, the best way to do it is actually looking at the influencers themselves.
And are you focusing on Instagram, or are you doing also the YouTube?
Yeah, so I mostly do Instagram stories. I have done a few YouTube promos. Some did super good, but mostly Instagram stories. Yeah.
Instagram stories. Okay. So let's say you've identified some good influencers with good relationship with their audience, which is clearly seen by the engagement they have on their comments. So let's see you found someone like this. What are the next steps typically from there?
So usually you would only find that 1 in 3 influencers will respond to you. Sometimes 1 in 10. So contact loads of them. Like you can't just find one ideal person and then expect them to reply. You have to email thousands of them, not thousands, maybe hundreds of them, that fit your kind of what you're going after. And usually when you get in contact with like an agency who has contacts with many different influencers, it's very easy to set up bulk promos with their whole network. So that's, if you want to do it quickly and efficiently, that's probably what bigger companies would do. Personally, when I just started with influencers, it was a matter of emailing a couple hundred, finding the best deals, and just working with them. Obviously, after you email them initially, something like, hey, we love your content, we would love to partner with you. What are your rates for promotion? They would send you their rates. You can negotiate. A few things you can do to negotiate is say, you'll work with them multiple times if the promo is successful. Or you can just say, we've paid similar influencers this amount, so here's what we think we can pay you. I try not to go too low because if you kind of offend an influencer, you completely lose the opportunity to work with them. So I don't like push it too low. I think more people push harder than me on the price. I'm not too worried about the price because I know like if it's like a 10 row ask from the influencer, like saving a couple hundred, it doesn't matter too much. Let's just be safe and not like want to offend the influencer, right? But yeah, once you agree the deal, you can send like a contract over. There's a few websites that make some of the terms and stuff. I usually skip this step unless if it's a big influencer. Find if the more steps, the more communication involved, it takes longer process. Like one chain of emails might take 3-4 days. So you're just making it longer for yourself. I personally like to set up many deals quickly, so I don't do the contracts and stuff. But you can choose to do that. Be like secure on your side, and then from there, ship them the product, get them to make content following your guidelines and stuff. And you review the content, you pay them, and you get the post up. And
so once you have that like arrangement, so do you know your product that you will promote at that stage, or you don't know yet?
Yeah, you should ideally know the product. On the first outreach, you should tell them, here's what we want to promote. You also send some demo slides of previous influencers we work with, so they feel comfortable you're a legit brand. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And so do you typically just like take, let's say, products from AliExpress? Do you have the product in a special like branded packaging? Like, do you make some adjustments to the product, or like how does it typically work?
Yeah. So you can dropship with influencers. Obviously, it's not ideal because their followers kind of trust them to give them good product. So if yours is just random Chinese packaging and stuff, it's not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I've worked with agents in China to bulk buy the products beforehand, as long as I've done initial tests, see if it has some traction, and then we do like the custom packaging and stuff. But you can drop ship. I know not loads of people. There's a few people who are drop shipping with influencers, and they're getting away with it. So it is possible. More preferred if you build a relationship with the customer, custom packaging and stuff like that.
So how much do you typically pay like per story, like let's say, or what kind of like arrangement? Do they have an arrangement with like per few stories that you do with certain influencer, or just like one to test out the waters and then move from there? And how much would you pay for each of those?
Yeah, so a few top tips about like pricing. Usually an influencer gets, so depending on how many likes they get, let's say if they have 50,000 likes, I've noticed they usually get 50,000 views, give or take. So you can ask them, how many views do you get? Send me screenshots. But again, that's another step. Some people won't do it, even if you ask them. So you can just keep in mind, they probably get the same amount of views as likes. So based off whatever likes they get, I usually say if you can get $5 per 1,000 story views. So if it's 50K story views, if you can get 250, that's a great deal. Typically, if it's like a really quality influencer, they might charge maybe even $1,000 for a promotion. But that just shows that their audience, they think their audience is worth that much. Loads of times these guys might overcharge. They overestimate how much they're worth. Sometimes they undercharge. And it's basically the ones that undercharge that we want to take advantage of, because that's where you see great ROAS for great price. Yeah.
And so how do you, so let's say you do the promo, like do you have like a special like link that they share? Like how do you measure the returns from a specific promotion?
So you can use discount codes. I like to put a discount code right at the end of the promo to say, 50% off, 60% off. That way you can track it pretty easily. But usually, based off the time of the promotion and stuff, you can see like the spike in sales. The thing when you're running influencer stores is that it's very inconsistent. Like I can do 60K one day, but then the next day it's only like 5K or 1K because there's no promotion scheduled for the next day. So it's very different to Facebook in the sense you can't like expect a certain amount of revenue each day. You need to constantly set up deals. If there's no deals, you won't make sales that day. But yeah, it should be fairly easy to track given like the inconsistencies of it.
Okay, so let's say you've had like a very good promo with someone, right? Like you know that you made like good money, and obviously you've paid that person. Do you offer them like continuous relationship, continuous engagement?
So usually only 10% of an influencer's audience will see the first story anyway. So technically you can run 10 more promos and get new people to see it each time. So if the first one's successful, usually I schedule 3 more. As long as the audience is big enough, and usually if you run 3 more, you see the same results for all different promos. You can schedule promo for a different product the next time around, but usually you'd see same amount of sales if you run it 2 or 3 more times.
Cool. So in terms of like choosing the markets to operate in, like have you operated like in some other markets, like maybe some European like smaller markets, or?
I've seen some agencies that know all the local influencers that can help with that. Like I said, I don't understand the language, so if an influencer sends me the content, I don't know if what they're saying is right or not. You can kind of guess, I guess, see what they're saying, but it's going to be hard. You have an advantage if you understand the language.
So in terms of the overall ROI, like for example, on a given month, on average, so let's say on a given month you do like how much on average month would you generate in sales?
So I would say for that 50-60K day, we pay 12K for the promotion. So 5 ROAS, like 20%, 30% product cost. So yeah, normally with influencers, your ROAS ranges. If you do like a poor promotion, you can expect to break even as long as you've done all the other stuff I mentioned, like making sure the audience is good quality and you kind of have experience that the product works. Then you can bare minimum expect to break even. But if you promote it as well, you can easily see 10 ROAS It's very much possible.
10x ROAS. Wow, that's pretty nice.
I've seen so on my best story promotions, we had 25% swipe up rate. So 25% of people click through to the store, and then 6% conversion rate. And the product was £50. So you can see some nice results.
That's awesome. You're from UK, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Have you connected with Alex Usovs?
I know him from the group. I haven't spoken to him directly.
Oh, you should connect with him because he's selling the beauty products on Facebook. He managed to do that. If he does some of the stuff that you do some of the stuff that he does, I think you guys will destroy it. He's done good numbers, like $800,000 in the last 4 months. So advertising on Facebook. So I'll connect you both. So let's say you had because most of our, it's kind of like not a lot of people in our community are doing the influencers. Everyone is like advertising on Facebook, dealing with all of the, all of the bands, with all of the like regular stuff. So how would you let's say you have like a product that's like doing well. How would you start like adding like the influencer channel to it? Let's say you have a good product that's selling on Facebook, let's say $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 per month. How would you start basically promoting it on, with influencers? Would you start with maybe bigger influencers, kind of like just to get more trust? Or would you still do this like micro influencers and do this exactly the same approach?
So first thing I would say is a lot of products on Facebook don't necessarily translate into working with influencers. I learned this other way around. Like when I was first starting, I used to sell some music boxes with like these meme and stuff. And I tried to bring it onto Facebook and I didn't seem to make it work. So sometimes when you bring something from Facebook over, if it's like niche down to beauty or jewelry, clothing sometimes as well, then okay, you have a chance. But not all products seem to work well. It's more to do with how an influencer kind of pitches it and positions it. Like it's easy to do a demo for beauty product, teeth whitening product or whatever. But if you have something else, something more complicated, like even if you want to do like a before and after type of thing, it's very hard to do with influencers because they can't show it in the right way. You can start off small if the product is working well on Facebook and you can replicate it over, do some small tests. If it's working, obviously get in touch with some agencies so you can scale big quickly. It's a great thing with influencers is you don't have to worry about spending limits or something like that. You can literally 1K promotion has done good. You can go to like a 10K promo. You don't have to slowly go to 1K, 2K, 3K. Once you've validated it's working, just like up the budget, go for bigger influence.
Okay, I see. But bigger doesn't always mean it's better, right? Like
it doesn't always mean, but like I said, if you follow the engagement stuff I mentioned and the story views are much higher, then typically, it means better results.
Okay, I see. Do you use any tools? Because, for example, I've had this like tool, InfluSpy. I mean, we didn't use it like extensively for our business, but I know some people using it. InfluSpy. I don't know if you're familiar. It's basically kind of like, spying on other promotions, other stories that other people have used.
I've seen a similar tool. I forgot the name of it. I have a VA who looks through the different markets and stuff, see what products influencers are promoting. Product research that way. But I also sometimes fall through stories and see stuff. So that's how we do product research.
That's awesome. So one of the things you mentioned, very interesting, is that, if product does well on Facebook, it won't like necessarily also perform extremely well with influencers, and other way around. If it works with influencers, it's not necessarily will perform well with Facebook, right? That's very interesting. So you would just like start, let's say, with some small tasks just to see if it resonates, if it sells, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay, so you have, let's say you have the influencer. Do you have some retargeting on other platforms just to kind of catch up on the traffic?
Yep. So one thing I've tried is the same influencer. By the way, usually when I look for influencers, what I do is I use YouTube. So whoever's on the YouTube trending page, they usually, they're popular at the moment. They have good following. Not anyone gets on the page, right? So then you take those YouTube influencers and then you go to their Instagram profile. Because if someone follows you from YouTube to Instagram, it shows you that they really like that influencer. So those are usually people. And if you work with them, you can later use their ads and put it on the YouTube channel. You can target the ads just to their channel, and that has been pretty effective. You need to obviously modify the way you structure it, but it can be pretty effective.
That's awesome. Do you have the agreement with every influencer? So for example, let's say they've created, let's say, because we work with influencers as well, but like slightly different way. We basically just source content from them, you know, so we pay them for the content creation. So then we have the agreements that we can use, you know, that content. Do you have those agreements as well that like you might use that content in the future?
Yeah, so for the bigger influencers, they definitely want like the contracts and stuff. They also sometimes they charge extra if you want to reuse their content for other marketing channels. But the smaller ones, like the ones you find on Billo and the other sorts of platforms, they don't have, like, they know it's going to be reused somewhere, so you should be okay with it.
That's awesome. So for example, you mentioned that to operate kind of like with this model, you need to buy like some products up front, right? You need to place some orders like with suppliers. You probably need some branded packaging so the product is actually looking good. Would that be the case for every promotion that you do?
So usually when you identify like a winning product, there's so many influencers out there, especially if you've kind of scaled something in the past, you know who to go to, right? So you can quickly set everything up. So I think you have an idea how many units you will sell, so it shouldn't be that big of an issue buying the inventory and stuff. One thing we did with our sourcing is that instead of using an agent, I actually went directly to 1688, which is like the Chinese site. Sometimes agents buy from that site itself. I work with someone in China, like I pay them because I can't do checkout on their site. They order the products to their warehouse and then I pay them obviously for the shipping. So I kind of cut out the agent part of it. It's me buying directly from the manufacturer itself.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So how long have you been doing this model so far, like with influencers?
So I would say 8 months or so.
How do you see any changes, like maybe like they're raising prices, or you know the engagement is like lowering or increasing? Like how do you see that spaces like?
Yeah, I think in terms of saturation, at least most people who run story promos are like the big brands, like Golly or you know the big brands who they don't focus too much on conversions. They want like brand awareness, and they don't push hard on their promos. Like when I run promos, I say really hard at the end, you know, swipe up now, 50% off. You want to push for the sale. But these guys, they just, you know, show the product, they do a little thing, demo. They don't push hard. So in fact, it's not saturated at all. Not many dropshippers are doing it properly, or at least.
After this video, man, you'll see, I don't know, maybe you'll see a lot more people doing this stuff.
But yeah, it's not saturated at all. Obviously, influencers recognize their value as time goes on. Like they know they can charge more because people are making more from them. A slow progression. That will for sure happen. You know, it's always happened. It will continue to happen. But yeah, if you find the right people, usually people who aren't represented by agencies are much cheaper because first of all, agencies they have experience. They know how to price their influencers, and they take their 20% fee. But the individuals who don't necessarily have experience, maybe they're just coming up, they aren't represented by anyone. You can easily drive their price down, and they will take like a lower price. So maybe that's something for you to keep in mind.
That's awesome. So you mentioned like you're doing like 50% off. Would that mean, let's say, so what's typically the price of your product that you sell? Like, does it work only for low ticket product, like low price products, or like what's typically the price point of your products?
One thing to note is that the influencers' audience demographic is quite important. So most influencers, they're teenagers, 18 to 24, or demographic is where most people are. And to that demographic, you can mostly sell maybe $30 items, and it works well. Primarily, I focus on slightly older demographic, 30, 45, 55 even, older influencers, because that audience has higher purchasing power. So products, $50, $100, you can easily sell through Instagram stories. I've seen someone who worked with influencer, and she only had, this was on YouTube, but she had like 50,000 subscribers. His video got 10,000 views, but he nearly did 100K from like the sales of his product, just from 10,000 views, because the audience was like perfect age, perfect demographic, all that type of stuff.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, for example, so 30, let's say less than $30. You mentioned 50% discount. Is that like perceived discount? Like, so or you actually drop the price like very low?
So I raise the price and then drop it to what we would usually sell it at. You would usually.
So there is still some margin. Like, so for example, you sell the product for $30. Like your COGS would be like 10.
Yeah, exactly. So you would still have, it's not like, making little margin, still like the normal margin, but perceived discount from code.
That's awesome. So do you actually do after the promotion, like do you save that content so you can use it for the ads or you can use it for other purposes later on?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we make completely different content for the retargeting, because in story dimensions you can't put it on the YouTube properly, so sometimes we do different content. But yeah.
That's awesome. So your sweet spot for the audience, they have like a certain sweet spot, like in terms of how many followers person would have, like certain KPIs that you look for.
Really, I just want as big influence as possible because I know if they fit my demographic, it's going to work well. If I say, as long as your audience is from top 5 country, or if you're in another market, then majority from that country, they're slightly older, females if you're selling to female audience, then your promo will work well. If it's kind of half male, half female, promos are like, it doesn't do 50% worse, it does like 80% worse, because for some reason there's no as much connection when you see the genders disorientated. So if everything is on point, then that's when your promo will really take off.
How is the effectiveness of what you're doing, this specific approach that you have now is different from, you mentioned previously you've been doing the memes and like those type of pages?
So back then, yeah, I was like, you would create the ad, of course, and then you send it to influencer and you get them to post it. Now it's all about getting the influencer to persuade their audience to buy the product. It's quite important to know how to position your offer. So like when we run promos, we usually do 4 or 5 story slides. And the way we position it is like, initially the influencer gets the product, they show it to the audience, like, hey guys, we just got this product in the mail. I'm going to try it out and let you know what it's like. And usually we just do 1 slide and just leave it like that for a few days. And a few days later, we actually do the demonstration of the product. We show them the features or whatever. And then we do the big offer, the big push at the end. And that's what, like, initially we warm up the audience and then we push them to the website after 3 or 4 days.
Oh, I see. So basically it's kind of like the series of a few stories.
Exactly, yeah.
I see. That's interesting. Wow. So what was your like best promotion out of all of the promotions that you've had? Like how did it work out? How much did it cost you? And how did you do it?
I mean, my best promotion was actually with a meme page like years ago. So we used to sell teeth whitening products, pens and stuff. I actually private labeled it at one point and we started a brand. And it's funny because you did an interview with Josh.
Oh yeah, Snow, yeah.
Yeah, I remember DMing him like 2 years ago. We were like, we're gonna take over Snow one day. We're gonna be the biggest teeth whitening brand. Because we were building this whole teeth whitening thing.
Oh really? So you had the same product?
Exactly. Yeah, we had the kit. It never took off, but we were thinking it was gonna be big at the time.
That's interesting. Like, was it like, so when he started this thing, he also was drop shipping at the beginning to validate it?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure he went full in with Snow. But for me, at least, we were drop shipping and then we bought stock to validate because we knew like it was working. So what we did with these meme pages was we looked at who was constantly hitting the explore page on Instagram. We would literally like DM hundreds of pages a day. And at one point, we were literally running 100 promos a day with really small pages. Like we pay $5-10 each.
Wow.
And then we would see like 10x ROAS because some of them went viral. They hit the explore page, like 500K views. And that just brought in all the sales. And
then Facebook killed the organic reach on pages, right?
Yeah. And then Instagram, it's like, at one point, you could easily go on the explore page. Now it's much better because so many more pages and stuff. And the clickbait thing doesn't work. But the strategy used to be like clickbait images, get people to watch it, and then eventually convert. Kind of harder now. I haven't seen anyone do it. But yeah, that was working a few years ago.
That's interesting. So what are the next steps for you? How do you see it? Like, do you kind of like want to scale this model as much as possible? Or kind of like, okay, want to identify, let's say, one product and let's just kind of like scale this product, maybe add some more channels to it? Like, how do you see your progression moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. So I think for me, at least, I plan to sell like a proper beauty devices brand, but multiple different products. So I was just focusing on 1 or 2. Just being more wider with the products we're selling, so we can reuse the same influencers multiple times and build more relationships. It wasn't as proper a few months ago when I started, so I can go from scratch again and hopefully like grow that into like a big thing. So for me, yeah, being more branded in my approach, yeah, that's next step forward.
That's awesome, man. Cool. So what would be your, like, let's say someone wants to kind of like get into like, and you mentioned there are not a lot of people that are actually doing this stuff, right? Like with influencers.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would be your main kind of like pieces of advice to people who want to, figure out this?
So I would, just like Facebook, if you're on Facebook, take some time to learn, understand the grips of things.
What budget you would need like to initially like figure it out, would you say, like initially?
So with personal influencers, you have like a solid 1K maybe for testing, 3 or 4, maybe 5 decent influencers. You can see, first promotion, you run it, see what went well, and then you run second one, see what went well, keep on building from that. And then take some time to find the perfect script, the perfect way to position your offer. When I started, I used to give them a script to say, like they would just read off it. But that doesn't work because the influencer knows their audience best. So if you force them to say something, it's kind of weird. They sound.
I see.
You need to let them like take full creative control. Of course, you can give them guidelines and stuff. Say like, you need to mention this, but just let them take care of it. And yeah, there's some stuff you'll learn along the way. But I think 1K for testing, learning, is a pretty good budget.
Cool. And in terms of so one of the things you mentioned that currently your VA basically does this kind of like outreach. Can this like be like fully outsourced, or are you still getting like involved and you checking, okay, so this person you need to message like this, or this person, like do you customize that approach? Does it require a lot of your personal kind of like intervention to do it properly?
Yeah. So the way we structure it is the VA makes a list of influencers. Kind of gone through their validation initially. And because the deals we do are usually much bigger, like I said, we don't do many deals now. We just do a few big ones. So I just want to make sure everything is okay. So usually I check everything, make sure, as long as they've responded, because if you check everything before people have responded, like I said, 1 in 10 will only respond. So it's kind of a waste of time. Double validate them after or just before we pay them itself.
So initially it's more like shotgun approach, right? Like that, and then like whoever like responds, you just kind of like start further investigating that.
Right. Yeah.
That's a good point. So from that point, let's say someone responded, does like your VA does the further like research on that person, or you do it? Like who does it?
Usually it's me. I'm still hands-on in that process. Obviously, if you do have such a good trained VA, they've been with you a long time, I guess they can do it. At the moment, it's still me in the second phase.
Okay, so you have all of the conversations directly with influencers.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Do you think can be like, so do you think at some point like you can train your VA to be like fully sustainable with that?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Obviously, it takes a certain type of like media buyer mind to understand how to talk to people, how like what relationship should you like keep, don't discount on certain stuff. Yeah, it's definitely possible to train someone to do that.
That's awesome. Cool, man. I've taken a lot of notes even for myself, like because we use influencers for the content. We haven't looked at it from the perspective of actually on a big scale, like generating sales from it and having this as additional channel, which is very interesting. So, and I think a lot of people would also would want to kind of like get into it and investigate and see, what they can do with it. Thank you for sharing a lot of great stuff. In terms of, I asked you like about the main like, pieces of advice. Just like few more like things that you see like maybe some other people are doing like wrong, right? Like in terms of the influencers or in terms of like this approach overall, like what would you say the main mistakes you see people are making?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of people, when they go into influencers, they look at, the vanity metrics like likes, engagement, like I talked about. They don't understand the whole affinity thing. Once you understand, like, for example, your audience would be more open to purchasing, $1,000 program or whatever, because they're strong enough, they're able to. If you go to random influencer, even if they have millions of followers, it doesn't necessarily mean they'll buy anything from that influencer. I take it one time. So one time I was working with influencer, and I thought this would be my biggest one yet, like 100K day. So this influencer passed every one of my tests. Like I said, the comments were decent. Everything else was great. And then, I just like turned off notifications on my phone because I thought like when I check it, it'll be 100K a day or something. And the next time I check it, and it was like 1K in sales. Thinking,
Fuck.
what went wrong? What did Stripe shut me down or something? And then I realized like this influencer was recently in headlines because they did something bad or stupid on social media, and they had bad publicity coming to them. And just like that, influencers' trust completely down the drain. And my promo was up the exact same time as this news came out. So people were sending me emails like, why are you working with this influencer? It's such a bad person, stuff like that. So you have to know that in advance, and maybe you do something big like that and it doesn't work out as you expect. But yeah, like I said, even if everything passes your initial test, still there is a chance it will go wrong. But most of the time you do okay.
Awesome, and thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing this stuff. I think there's a lot of things that people who do well with other channels, they can incorporate this right into. Especially we have some people that are selling product that are not fully compliant, and they're constantly struggling with Facebook. So they can add this as much as so we use it mostly for content sourcing. Just using that content for the ads, which works pretty well. But now it's kind of like opens another channel pretty much of generating sales, right? And generating content at the same time. So thank you for sharing that, man. Yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you everyone for watching. And yeah, thanks Alex for sharing.